Well, hours before that meeting took place, the United States announced that it had designated Syed Salahuddin, the chief of the Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist group, as a global terrorist, which basically means that any American entity or citizen cannot give him or his organization any kind of funding. Now, whether that amounts to anything is a big question, but there was, as you saw in the story there, a pretty strong reference to terror and the role that Pakistan plays in it. We have Bharat Gopalaswamy of the South Asia Atlantic Council back with us tonight. Also with us, Ambassador Hardeep Puri, our former envoy to the United Nations. Senior Congress leader and former MP Milind Deora joins us tonight. We'll be joined by the rest of our panel shortly. Ambassador Puri, to you first. Would you say that this visit turned out to be better than expected overall, given how cautious India was going into this?
Yes, I would broadly agree with that assessment. Dealing with the Trump presidency at this point of time can be a perilous exercise, and some of our other friends haven't fared that well. But I think in overall terms, the outcomes from the visit are very positive in terms of what is contained in the joint statement, prosperity through partnership, and also the positive optics, the handshakes, the hugs. Those provide a good atmospherics. But at the end of the day, the joint statement is very positive in terms of the fact that it signals continuity. We had doubts that maybe just as the president, the 45th president, is going to do away with parts of the Obama legacy on which he's trying very hard, maybe some parts of foreign policy in South Asia may be in for a surprise. But I think both on issues relating to terror, issues relating to connectivity, sovereignty, read One Belt, One Road, all other references where there are contentious issues involved like trade, they have papered over those, and I think they decided to play up the positives, which is not to suggest that the troublesome issues will not come. I have no doubt that when you set up a mechanism for designation of terrorists, or you discuss and review your overall trade relationship, the hard negotiations will follow.
But do you think, Milind Deora, let me just now get into the specifics, that what has been announced on Syed Salahuddin and the designation of him as a global terrorist, also the pretty strong language that's used on Pakistan's role in terrorism, that this marks a shift and that we actually will see this administration perhaps being tougher in its approach to Pakistan?
Well, I think, Nidhi, partly I agree with my dear friend Mr. Puri, and partly I must disagree, because where I agree is there is what came out of this meeting was that there is continuity after the Trump administration has taken charge, and there was a concern on either side perhaps after the kind of election rhetoric we saw in the United States. So that's a good thing. I don't think this is the first time that an American president or a Secretary of State or senior official in the United States government has called out Pakistan for being using its soil to sponsor terrorism. So I don't think there's anything substantive there. I think the largest strategic miss was the fact that under President Trump's leadership, there was a change in policy with regards to China and with regards to OBOR specifically. President Obama, for instance, was not keen on the United States actively participating in the One Belt, One Road initiative. Under President Trump's leadership, the United States actually sent a representative to China a few months ago. And I'm not sure if we actively managed to convince the United States that it's not even, forget about India, but it's not even in the United States' long-term interest to be actively engaged in OBOR, not only in their strategic interest, but even in their economic interest. The United States, for instance, said we want to participate in OBOR because there might be a lot of business opportunities for American companies. But we all know that the way the Chinese government has been working with OBOR, and the way any government works for that matter, in India, if you look at how JICA from Japan lent money to for the New Delhi Metro, it's Japanese companies that get the contract, and it's Chinese companies that are going to get the contract. So there was no mention of the fact that India was trying to convince the United States that actively participating in OBOR is not in its long-term interest.
Well,
moving away from the strategic issues,
Milind, I'll just come.
I think on the economic side, you mentioned very briefly
I'm going to come to the other specific issues in just a moment. It's interesting what you said on China, because the feeling is that actually the very fact that they've made a reference to sovereignty and territorial integrity is in itself a positive. But on the specific issue of Pakistan, Bharat Gopalaswamy, what do you think? Yes, there has been a reference that has been made to Pakistan earlier as well, but in the context of 26/11, this seems to be a stronger statement because it talks about Mumbai, Pathankot, other cross-border terrorist attacks perpetrated by Pakistan-based terrorist groups, and the reference to Pakistan comes about 4 times in 4 sentences or 3 times in 4 sentences. Do you see a slight shift in what was the earlier position?
I think I do see a shift, but if you have also been watching what's going on in Washington across the civil society groups or think tanks like us, there has been a building momentum about Pakistan's role, not only with India, but vis-a-vis Afghanistan too. So there is a lot of frustration amongst many of us out there to see for the United States to call on for a harder stance towards Pakistan. In fact, Lisa Curtis, who was the senior director at the National Security Council, came out with a hard scathing report with Hussein Haqqani about calling for a reset with the United States approaches vis-a-vis Pakistan. So yes, there is a shift, but that's been building over a period of time, and the aid to Pakistan will become the lowest in terms of $345 million in years. So you do see these changes across, and you are going to see tougher and tougher approaches. In fact, last year, the number of hearings on Pakistan and the Hill were also pretty high.
So you're saying that this whole issue of Pakistan is something that's not credited to the Trump administration alone. It's something that a momentum that's built up over time. Jyoti Malhotra, the consulting editor of the Indian Express, also with us. Jyoti, how much of a difference does it make if Syed Salahuddin is designated a global terrorist? He's actually not such a big player as he used to be once upon a time. So therefore, what is the important symbolism of this, or what's the message, and why is this so important?
Nidhi, you're absolutely right. Syed Salahuddin lives inside Pakistan. So the symbolism is that the Pakistani government, whether it's the ISI or it's the elected government, which is keeping him inside and keeping him secure, they are now being castigated indirectly to say that this man, who is a globally designated terrorist, now lives inside your country. But that's it. It cannot go beyond that, because it's not as if the Pakistanis are going to give up Salahuddin. Inshallah, this will happen very soon. But right now, I don't think that Rawalpindi is going to give him up. Having said that, the Indian government, it is a big achievement for the Indian government to name Salahuddin. He is a Kashmiri, lives inside Pakistan, and the other references in the joint statement to terrorism in Kashmir are in line with what the Indian government has been saying.
All right, Jyoti, I apologize. There's a problem with your mic. We'll just try and fix that. Let me just get Shehzad Chaudhry, Strategic Affairs expert from Pakistan, also joining us. Shehzad Saab, what do you make of this joint statement? The designation of Salahuddin, Pakistan's reacted pretty strongly, calling it unjustified. What do you think?
I don't think it really matters, because there's a whole lot of other Hizbul Mujahideen leadership very much in the valley and in Srinagar. So why only Salahuddin? I mean, if India had to achieve something, they perhaps should have been able to call each and every one of them as a terrorist and get it approved by the United States, because perhaps that approval means a lot to India. But that's for India and the United States to work out between themselves. In fact, as far as Pakistan is concerned, the Kashmiris in India are fighting a just war for their own freedom, for self-determination. And those Kashmiris who happen to be on the Pakistani side are the brethren of those people, and therefore it is between these Kashmiris and the Kashmiris within currently in India, Jammu and Kashmir, to be able to work things out between them. I think Pakistan will continue to suggest and state that the two countries and the Kashmiris need to work together towards a peaceful resolution of the problem, because it's a long-standing problem now. It's an internationally recognized problem. As far as the United States,
Shehzad Saab, the problem is that when the problem for Pakistan is that when someone like Syed Salahuddin, who has been held up as this sort of Kashmiri hero by Pakistan, when it talks about the so-called Kashmir freedom movement, when he is designated a global terrorist by the United States, doesn't that weaken Pakistan's moral argument on Kashmir?
No, he's not the only hero. The heroes are 100,000 people who lost their lives.
But he has been the chief of the Hizbul Mujahideen and the head of the United Jihad Council. He was a big figure once upon a time.
Once upon a time, and this is what you would like to make him out to be, because this is what we got out of the United States. What I'm suggesting to you is that you have so many more in Kashmir currently. The Mir Wais is there, Gilani is there, the Yasin is there, and so many more. So why don't you get them declared terrorists also? In fact, I would suggest that get the entire Kashmiri population in the belly declared terrorists, because that's what you call them. So, but that's, like I said, between you guys and the United States to be able to do that.
Well,
as far as Pakistan is concerned, we are a party to an international dispute, and we think that all three sides need to get together.
You know, what you're saying, what you're saying actually reflects the difficulty of how things will be going forward. And Anand Ahuja, who's a senior lawyer, also joins us from New York this evening. Mr. Ahuja, I think there's a lot of skepticism when such announcements are made, you know, about designating terrorists and banning terror organizations, because it's happened before, even with the Hizbul Mujahideen, the LET, Hafiz Saeed. There's a $10 million bounty on Hafiz Saeed's head, but he's able to roam freely in Pakistan and you know, make anti-India speeches all the time and make threats against India all the time. What do these announcements really amount to at the end of the day?
Nidhi, you have to take everything in the prevailing circumstances, what's going on around the world. If you see, yesterday only, United States Supreme Court agreed to Donald Trump's ban on nationals coming from those 6 countries where it's perceived that terrorism is being plotted. So if you see, I personally believe that this was a test of India's diplomatic skills, and India has come out with their flying colors to getting at least some terrorist who is on the soil of Pakistan declared as international terrorists. India has been trying for a long to persuade United States administration to declare some terrorists who are basically based in Pakistan to be declared as international terrorists. So everything depends how you perceive. You want to see glass half full or glass half empty. I personally believe that this was a big achievement on the part of Indian government to convince United States government to get this person declared as a terrorist